Today's quote of the day is, "The best project you'll ever work on is you." So that came up a couple podcast episodes ago and got a lot of positive interaction. So I felt that it was absolutely perfect to use it again at the start of today's episode, which we are recording in the studio as well. So if you're listening on the podcast, thank you so much. But also know that there's going to be a video to go along with this. So you can fast forward through some of the beginning when you're listening to it and just dive right in and watch some of the movement pieces as well. But don't worry, I cue heavy, so there's lots of talking that goes on. You'll be able to follow me through this, even if you're listening on the podcast. So thank you all so much. And for those of you that are watching here on YouTube or on the blog, thank you as well. You can follow me through some of these movements as well. So again, just listening as I go through and explain some of the breath work and the core, which is what today's is all about. I will be debunking some myths about ab exercises such as, crunches and planking and twists, rotation, and even this new thing called ab vacuuming, which was brought to my attention recently. So some fun topics that we're going to talk about today. And I have one really, really big announcement. That is, my core rehab program is open. I decided to open it early, keeping it open because we get so many women that reach out to us and are like, "Erica, can you please just open it early? I really, really want to get started." So it's here for you. You can check all the details out at ericazeal.com, or the link will be in the show notes as well. So you can all check that out. And if you have additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me on social media, Erica Zeal at Instagram or on Facebook. We'll also put those in the show notes. Okay, so let's dive right into today's episode and start with addressing one of my favorite topics of how to activate your deep core more effectively, what not to do and how to do it. So let's get started. So I want to start by talking about specifically when we're doing anything that involves our core. Our core runs from the base of our pelvis all the way up to our shoulders. So it's the core of our body, right? And abs in general, we think of like the six-pack muscles that's in the front, right? Well, there is a purpose for having six-pack muscles to help us flex up and get up and down from the ground. That's great. It's more important to really understand what's going on deeper inside of our core. This involves our pelvic floor. Whether you're a woman or a man, everybody has a pelvic floor, and it's very important that we address that when it comes to life and addressing it specifically with core and abdominal exercises. So initially, when we're doing any sort of exercise, any exercise regardless of ab exercise or not, if it is putting pressure on your pelvic floor, or you don't feel your pelvic floor activating, or you feel anything pressing downward on your pelvic floor, or experience incontinence where you pee your pants a little bit, those are all signs that whatever you're doing is not an appropriate movement for your body at this point in time. But note that it could be, maybe not. We'll talk about that. The other things I want you to be aware of is that exercise, is that ab exercise causing your back to hurt? Is it causing your neck to hurt? I know with crunches, it can hurt so many people's backs and necks, but that we keep doing them over and over and over again. And I don't get that, because if it's causing pain in your body, that's a sign that your body is telling you, hey, that exercise is not right for your body right now. And so there's different ways that we need to be addressing this. So I want to start with talking about breathing and really bringing awareness to that, because we have traditionally been taught about really drawing our belly to our spine. So whatever you're doing right now, whether you're sitting, standing, even if you're driving, you can still practice this with me, is I want you to think about breathing wide into your sides. And if you're watching the video here, I want to turn to the side to show you this. So if you breathe to your sides, right, let the shoulders relax. Deep breath wide. As you exhale, if you just go to draw your belly to your spine, what happens to your posture? What happens to the pelvic floor? Where does the pressure go in your back? So this is how we activate our abs throughout our day or when we're doing exercises, and I will demonstrate some in different positions. So if you're listening to this later, come check the video so you can see this stuff, so it's even more explanatory. So if we're drawing our belly to the spine, our spine all day, I want you to hold that for a minute and try to breathe, right? It's kind of hard to breathe. You feel restricted, and like my shoulder, we're already like this, you guys. We're on our phone all the time, on our computers, we're sitting a lot. So if we're like this all the time, the pressure's in our back, the pelvic floor, can you even feel your pelvic floor activate? Most likely not, and if you can, it's not a good activation. It's maybe just a little bit of something working. So if we're doing this all the time, we're doing ab exercises, we're doing crunches, that's not doing optimal work for our body to support our spine, because hello, isn't this what we're trying to prevent as we get older, right? So I want to teach you how to prevent that. And the first step is to stop drawing your belly to your spine. And I know I'm gonna get a lot of comments because I've done this before, we've talked about this before, and I know I'll get a lot of comments, but that's how I've been taught forever. Okay, so let's learn to expand our knowledge and learn something new, because learning something new could mean so much more progress for your body. And specifically because I have so many, women that are having babies and postpartum, and even way beyond the newer postpartum phase, that posture of all of that can really kind of lead you into this, right? So if we're always just drawing belly to spine, it's not helping anything with aches and pains, pelvic floor function, diastasis recti, and all of that. So this is a big thing that I address throughout my core rehab program as well. So step-by-step process through that program. It's helped change so many women's lives, and a big part that is addressed too is the pelvic floor. So I want to bring awareness to that. Now I want to show you how I recommend breathing and activating through your deep core, which is way, way more effective than just drawing belly to spine. Now, keep in mind that it's not always easy, and it's learning a new skill, so it's not going to happen right away. You'll find yourself still from time to time probably wanting to draw belly to spine. So when you do that, just be like, okay, let's release that. And when you can release and relax your belly through your pelvis, pelvic floor, then we can work to reconnect. So I'm going to show you from the side so you can see the difference if you're watching this. Otherwise, just follow along with me, even if you're sitting or you're running and listening to the podcast version, because this is very effective. And this cueing is something that I recommend, come back and listen to this from time to time, because it can really, really help you. And this is one thing that I notice through the women that do my core rehab program is that initially you may not feel what I'm saying, but just keep doing it, keep visualizing it, and the more and more you practice, the easier and easier it becomes. And all of a sudden one day you're like, oh, that's what she's been saying for a while, okay? So you want to just relax through your hips and shoulders, and I want you to breathe wide to your sides and into your back. And as you exhale, lightly feel as though you're drawing your pelvic floor, that kind of diamond shape at the bottom, together and lengthening up all the way through the top of your head. So your spine stays straight. We don't round, right, like we did with the belly to spine. And then as you exhale, lightly zip up even more. Feel this light wrapping around the ribs. Inhale, breathing out to your sides and back. And exhale, the lightest connection of zipping up from the base of the pelvis, pelvic floor, pubic bone inside and all the way up. And then you lightly hold all of that on the underside of your pelvis, belly lengthening through your spine. And then we continue to breathe out to our sides. But we have this little bit of a support. So this is really important if you're going out for a run or when you're weight training or even throughout your day, to help support your body, to help to support your spine. When you have that support of the fascia and the muscles, it's amazing how much better your body can start to feel right away. So when I want you to apply those cues and that idea to every movement, every exercise. And again, it's like learning a new skill, but in time it does get better. So I want to show you from the front as well, so you can see the difference. When you're breathing, we do belly to spine, it's rounding, right? So we want to inhale, breathe out wide. Exhale, lightly zip up from the base of the pelvic floor and lengthen. So you almost feel like from the sternum, there's this lifting all the way up in front of your nose and this wrapping around the ribs. And the wrapping of the ribs, I know, can be a challenging concept to initially understand. So my best advice is don't try to force it. You should never really force anything with your body, but the more you start to visualize the cueing that I explain and you start to practice it, That's the first step. And then the more that you practice it, the more you become aware of it, the more improvements you see in your body, and the more it becomes a habit. So that's where this really, really plays a role. And when you really learn this, which is something I dive in even deeper in my core rehab program, but once you learn these skills and learn these movements the correct way, it's there with you for life. And yes, do you need to keep them in on a regular basis? Sure. But it eventually becomes more of a habit for you. Just like our maybe not so great habits today are in there, you can change those. Okay, let's go ahead and move in. I want to talk about crunches. It's an exercise that gets asked a lot, and I'm a big vocal person about not really doing crunches. And if you are going to do them, I have a way that I'm going to show you that I want you to do them. So if you're in a workout class somewhere, or you're doing a video online or whatever it might be, and they're teaching you crunches, you can just instantly take your body where you know it should go. And that's one thing that I challenge you to do. So even if, again, workout class, watching something online, take this concept of the more fascial, deep core, the better proper breathing techniques, and you can follow along with what they're teaching and doing that exercise, but you can make it even better for your body. Okay, so if you're watching the video, I'm gonna move on down to the floor. Otherwise, you could just listen through these cueing, and then the next time you go to do some of these exercises, it can be very helpful because you've brought awareness to, oh, what's going on with your pelvic floor and your pelvis and neck. And if you're feeling any of those pains and pressure in funky places, then those are signs that we need to adjust either that exercise, change the way we're breathing, and doing more exercises that are modified. And remember, modified doesn't mean it's easier, right? For so many, it can mean that it's way, way more effective. Okay, so let's dive into these crunches, right? So we're gonna roll onto the back, or actually, my preferred way to have you lay on your back is you want to zip up the belly, kind of start on your side, and then roll to your back. This is a safer way if we're dealing with any sort of diastasis or anything like that. So feet are out, right? When we do traditional crunches, we kind of think like hands behind, maybe your legs are up, and we're rounding and jamming our back. I almost have a hard time doing these inappropriate. I haven't done these so long. I don't do crunches, honestly, myself very, very often. And if I do, I will show you how I do them here in a minute. So with your feet down, and when we jam our back, and I know it's taught a lot, to really push your back down into the ground, draw belly to spine, but then when you're there, what do you feel working? You may feel pain in your back. I know many people do. You can't really activate your pelvic floor very well, and you feel stress in your neck, most likely. So I want you to do, if you're watching this, you can do a couple of the incorrect ones, or if you're listening, that's great. Thinking about, okay, traditionally, right, jamming your back, we want to avoid that. So you want to find a little bit more of a neutral-ish position, pretend like you're holding like a water glass on your pelvis. Then from there, I start with hands at your sides so we don't stress in the neck. And you want to think about breathing wide to your sides. Exhale, lightly zip up from the pelvic floor all the way through the top of the head and wrap those ribs. I know the wrapping of the ribs can be challenging. It's just something to be aware of and to work on. Because when we flex up, the movement should really come from the abs, or from the rib cage, because that's where the abs knit into the ribs. And all this fascia is all intertwined through here, okay? So we focus on the ribs to bring our head up, then we don't tense in the neck. And again, this is breaking old habits for many, but being aware of it is the first step. So when we inhale, breathe wide, exhale, zip up from the pelvic floor, and then arms at your side, tuck your chin lightly, exhale, use your ribs to slide you up. And try to do that without moving your pelvis. So if you're listening to this audio, at some point come watch the video so you can see this, and you're going to feel the difference. It's probably initially harder on your core because you're not used to trying to stabilize here. But you'll feel a lot deeper through your lower abs. You can feel the light connection through the pelvic floor. Notice I say light. We don't want to overstress the pelvic floor when we're doing anything, okay? And then it's the ribs that are holding you up. The ribs are like gliding down and together, kind of knitting this way. And then we don't have so much stress in our neck. And then we lower down, right? You can do that with your legs in somewhat of a tabletop position as well, but don't let your back come down. So these are gauges for if you come up with your legs tabletop and you can't hold this, or it's too much on your neck, or it's pain somewhere, then it's a good indication that your body is not ready for that exercise yet. Okay, so if you're gonna do any crunches, do them in this more neutral position. Zip up, pelvic floor, low belly, wrap the ribs, come up. Okay, then lower down, flex on up if that's okay for you, or roll to your side. So the one thing I find, and the biggest thing I want to emphasize with the crunch type exercises is, again, if you're going to do them in a way so you're not jamming your back into the floor, because that's shutting off your deep core. And we don't want that to happen because it's putting pressure in the wrong places and it's not strengthening the right stuff. Okay, and so when you're doing those, just think about, oh, what am I feeling in my body? So we don't want to feel pain. And keep in mind, crunches are not an easy exercise, and it is something I teach it in my core rehab program, but it's not till the end because there's so many other exercises that are way, way, way more effective for your abs and for your deep core. So crunches are one of those that I'm like, if you really, really feel the need to do them, or you're in a workout class and they're doing crunches, you can just instantly modify them by putting your pelvis and breath and core activation, doing it in the way that I just taught you right there, or again, better yet, going through the whole core rehab sequence, and then you'll really understand when your body's ready for them, because there's so much fundamental work that needs to be done in order to actually get to where we need our bodies to be for optimal core function. And it takes time, and even if you feel like you're super, super strong and super athletic, I actually find that it's even more effective sometimes when you really take a step back, work on the fundamentals, and build up back to where you're at, and then you're going to feel even stronger. And all the exercises and core work that you're doing today will be even better and more effective down the road once we break it back down. Okay, so I want to move from here into planks. I want to address planking. Planking is a question that comes up a lot. Am I okay to do planks? Should I do planking? And things like that. And the biggest thing is, again, everybody's bodies are different. Some people are okay to do planking sooner than others. But again, we've got to work on these fundamentals and some things that you want to be aware of. Just like I talked about with the crunches and the breath work, the pelvic floor, the back pain, neck pain, all of that, you should never ever feel stress or pain in your back when you're doing planks. And if you can't feel your deep core and your abdominals working with your planking, and you can't feel your quads at all, then that's an indication that it's probably too hard. So I'm gonna actually work these modifications backwards for you today. I'll start on the floor, and then I'm gonna work up to the chair. And then from there, you could take it to a wall. I won't show that today. But just taking a plank from a floor up to a chair can dramatically improve the effectiveness of a plank. Because I consider a plank, doing it down on the floor, to be an advanced exercise. Okay, so don't be in a rush to get down and do them. And when you do a plank, don't do static planks. Don't just hold a plank. I don't find any benefit to doing those other than stressing your back and neck and shoulders. So in order to make them effective for your core, the way that I feel like they should be, is you need to move. So doing what I call my plank slides. So we'll show them for you here. So when you're on all fours, on your forearms, bring those legs back, lightly activate those glutes. Draw your pubic bone under ever so slightly. Not enough, you're not like jamming and tucking your pelvis. It's just enough that you're not dipping into your low back, okay? You should never feel back pain. So reach through those quads, pull up from that pubic bone, light activation of the pelvic floor. Then it's inhale, pressing your heels back, exhale, slide forward. Inhale back, exhale forward. So we're getting that full line all the way to the top of the head, through the quads, through the low belly. So you feel this entire line through the body. That's a really, really big fascial line. And that's what, when I teach these, at the end of the day, it's the fascial lines that are really, really important. Not just working the muscles themselves. Our body needs to work together. Okay, so I want to move up to a chair. And if you're just listening to this audio, that's fine. So when you do these exercises, thinking about these cues and things that I'm talking about can be very, very beneficial. So when you come up to the chair, or a bench level, or like a couch at home, things like that, that's a really good middle road to go to for doing planks. I never start anybody on the floor. I might start someone on like a bench chair level, but many times it's even at a wall when you're first learning how to do them. Okay, so with planks, if you come up to like a chair or bench level, on your forearms, this can just take a lot of pressure off. So it's just a better place to start. Taking your legs out long. Good. Pulling up on those quads. Zipping up from the pubic bone, light pelvic floor. Inhale, press the heels back. Exhale, slide forward. So you want to visualize your body being one nice long line, lightly pulling up from the hamstrings, low belly, lengthening tall through the top of your head. So listening to this, right, these are just really good important cues that you can think about to help make your core exercises so much more effective. I want to talk about twisting movements and rotation. So twisting and rotation can be really, really good for your abs, for your core. But there are certain movements that I want you to be aware of. And the biggest ones, and this is interesting because it does come from my Pilates background, but you'll notice that my style of teaching core exercises, while some of it comes from the Pilates background, a lot of it much more comes from what is really optimal for deep core function, and more importantly, what is optimal for your core function for where you're at today. And that's my biggest message, I guess, that I want to get across today through talking about these ab exercises, because trying to keep up with the person next to you in a workout class may not be the best for your body. Heck, it might not even be best for their body, right? But they don't know any better. So this is why I'm here to help bring awareness to this. So thinking of these things when you go through these exercises, and how is it feeling on your body? And are you feeling it the correct way? Or are we feeling pain or pressure on the pelvic floor? Things like that. So when we do seated movements like twisting, right, where you're sitting in a chair, you're sitting and we're just trying to twist really deep, and we get twisting at the lumbar spine. We really want to watch any twisting. I'll do it from the side. We really want to watch any twisting from like really deep at the lumbar spine, okay? If we're not moving our hips, rotation needs to be small, and it needs to come from the ribs, from this thoracic through here. So we're lifting and rotating. Okay, we don't want to twist in our lumbar spine. And that's not to say like in yoga and movements and different twists, it's not that you can't twist. But I want you to think about the next time you're in a yoga class and you're doing a twist, are you twisting from your ribs and from your thoracic, or is the twisting coming from more at your sacrum and your lumbar spine down here, okay? So keeping that in mind when you're twisting, it needs to be from the thoracic. So it's like you're lifting up out of the pelvis and then you rotate, which means you probably will not rotate as far, but it's going to be way more effective. You'll actually be able to get into the deep layers of the deep intercostals and all the fascia that goes in and around our ribs and through our visceral and along our spine, that you'll actually all of a sudden be able to go deeper quicker versus just forcing it deeper because another instructor or you think you're supposed to go deeper. Going deeper into twisting doesn't mean they're any better for your body. It could actually be worse. So pulling up out of twists and making sure you're lifting and twisting through the ribs and the thoracic is really, really key. So with rotation, I like to focus on more full body rotation because we have these fascial spiral lines, and I love the fascial spiral lines because it's the spiraling that I feel really takes your body to that next level, but you've got to be ready for it, and we have to realize that our hips need to move with us. So even when I was standing here and starting to like show like, okay, here and feeling a little bit of twisting through my ribs, I feel as I rotate to my left, my right leg pushes down to the floor. So we're getting this opposition as I twist to my right. My left leg is, we're getting this like spiral and opposition. And that's really key with improving the fascial function of our body. And I've talked about fascia before, I talk about it a lot. We'll talk about it more down the road. But we wanna really think of oppositions and connection. So you've probably seen me do my standing rotations. You'll see them throughout my core rehab. It's a big piece. You see it in my prenatal stuff that I teach, my prenatal membership. You'll see it on social media, things like that, because it's so effective. And honestly, it's an exercise for almost everybody, but you've got to do it the correct way. And that is, we've got to lift up out of the pelvis. And when you go to rotate, you want to lift the back heel. So if I'm rotating to my left, you're going to lift the right heel. So I've got activation through the glute. We're lifting up out of the pelvis. So I'm trying to create space here. And then as I rotate, I lead from my toe through my hip, through my ribs, and I reach. So now I'm not, there is like no pressure or anything around my sacrum and lower back. I'm getting this nice opening through the front of the hips, which we get really tight from sitting. So that's why rotation, and especially full body rotation, can be so good for our bodies, because it really helps to realign, helps to create space between our bones, which is key for helping to minimize and get rid of aches and pains, prevent them. It's also good for our nervous system, for our lymphatic system, and all that when we get into the deeper layers, which we do by activating the fascia through movement. So reaching through that leg, you want to lift and rotate. And when you breathe, right, I teach you breathing out to your sides and into your back, lifting and rotating through the ribs, while you're also reaching in opposition through that back leg and lifting tall through the top of the head. And again, it's not about how far you move, it's about getting that initial concept. So if we go to the right, we lift the left heel, squeeze that glute, lengthen, and reach. And the more you do these, with each one, you start to rotate, 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 feel the ribs taking you, and we go side to side. And this is a great one for helping to align your body as well, but it also is good for teaching you about your body and noticing that, oh, one side might feel a little bit muckier than the other. That's very common. So paying a little bit more attention to that side that might feel a little bit more restricted or tight, and don't force things to open. That's another big piece. We don't want to force opening of fascia. We want to encourage it to lengthen, but not force it. Okay, and it will actually open up a lot easier when we take a much more gentle approach, using our breath to also help stimulate the fascia, and our deep core is very, very, very important. Okay, I want to wrap up by addressing ab vacuuming. So this is something that I'd recently heard about. Someone had asked me about it in regards to helping to heal diastasis. And so I looked into it a little bit, and you kind of see it taught and obviously everyone has kind of their variation, but I'm going to show you kind of what I've seen out there online, and then I'm going to show you a way that, and talk you through a way that I would say that you could modify it and make it even more effective. So with the ab vacuuming, it kind of brings us back to the very beginning of our conversation today, and that is the belly to spine. That's why I'm seeing everybody teach this. So if you go to the video, otherwise if you just do this with me, you'll feel the difference. And sometimes when we do it, of course, don't want it to hurt or be painful or anything, but if you do it inappropriate as far as like the belly to spine, and then you do it the way that I'm going to cue you next, you'll feel such a difference. And then you'll understand, oh, this is why we really don't want to be drawing belly to spine. So if we do belly to spine with this ab vacuuming, the way I've seen it taught anyway is, okay, you take a deep breath, and then as you exhale, you draw your belly into your spine, causes you to round forward, and then you pull up. I have a really hard time doing this, by the way, because it's so backwards from what I teach, but it's lifting up, like they flare like the ribs and stuff like that, and then you hold, and you don't breathe, and you twist. And I don't know what that does for your body. Sorry, but the girls and I had a good laugh about this earlier, because I was like, wait, I don't understand what this is doing other than I feel pressure in my back and it doesn't feel good. So for me, that's all I really feel is like tightness in my back, because it goes against like this lengthening and the opening of the body. So there's nothing wrong with working our core through breath. I actually think that's really good, right? But let's do it in a different way. So I'm going to show you again, this goes kind of back to what I initially was talking about today with how to breathe, and how to activate the core. So if we breathe wide to our sides, we exhale, we lightly zip up, and then you start to feel this wrapping around the ribs, and you feel this support, and it kind of makes your chest kind of pop out, and you feel big, and then we feel solid through here. Then we can do some nice like lifting and rotating, and we kind of start to add we'll show it from the front here if you're watching. So if we're doing this lengthening and we feel the ribs, and we want to do some twisting like this through the hips, notice the hips are moving a little bit, or center and opposite, then we can do a little bit of that. You're really going to feel this, but you know what it's doing? We're getting more fascial lines versus if we're rounded forward and doing that. That's not optimal. And plus, if we're practicing that way, it's pulling things down and in, and we want things to be lengthened and supported. So we need to practice moving our body and connecting our core in a way. Okay, so let's do this from the front view again, or if you're just listening to this, you can try this. Just stand up, feet just like hip width or a little shoulder width apart if you want. And I want you to inhale and let everything relax. Let your hips relax. Breathe wide to your sides and your back. And then as you exhale, lightly connect from that base of that pelvic floor. Remember that diamond underneath the pelvis. Draw it together lightly. Grow tall. Grow tall as you exhale. Now holding that as you inhale, you can still breathe, you guys. Exhale, zip up more. Wrap the ribs more. So you kind of feel this zipping up underneath, pubic bone up, lengthening through the spine, wrapping around those ribs. And then if you want to twist, you can go here. But you know what I want you twisting with? I want you twisting. Put your hands here. It's probably better. If we go here, it can maybe cause you to round, so I don't want you to lose that. Put your hands on your ribs and then keep lifting. Keep breathing wide and then feel the twist. Feel a little opposition. So if we're rotating to the right, you're pushing down and wrapping around the left thigh. Lift up to the center. Exhale, push down with the right thigh as you wrap the right ribs. So we're getting opposition and lengthening. You're going to feel this nice diagonal pull. If you want to speed it up, go for it. But don't do this. If we're going to do any twisting like that, any rounding, make sure that it's a lifting and then a little bit of rounding versus just a collapsing, okay? So that's the biggest difference in watching what your pelvis is doing as well, that we're not jamming our pelvis underneath of it. So I know I talked through a lot of cueing, and really at the basis of it, right, it's about activating the deep core from the pelvic floor up. You want to feel length, you want to feel support, you want to feel strong, right, as you're moving throughout your day. So next time you go to do a workout that they have more intense ab exercise, connect with your body. What is it telling you? Is it feeling good for your body? Are you connecting? Do we need to modify that exercise so that it's more effective for you? And so I'm excited to announce that Core Rehab is open, and we've added an entire new core nutrition program with it, which gives you lifetime access. I blown away that I'm doing this, but it's so exciting because nutrition is such a big part of our health. Movement, super important, absolutely. But nutrition with movement together is just going to lead your body and your life to so much success so that you can feel better, have more mental clarity, feel better with your body. And the thing that I've taught, and the reason I designed Core Rehab the way it is it takes you back to these fundamentals that maybe you've done some of these exercises, but you've probably not done them the way that I cue them and teach you. So it's super important that we take a step back, really build a good foundation and progress from there. And because everybody's bodies are different, some women are able to go through it the way it's designed, a couple weeks each phase. Others, you might spend a couple months in each phase, or you might go partway forward, and then all of a sudden one day you have this light bulb moment, and which you may even pick up some of that just from what I've talked about today. And it takes time at a cellular level to create these new fascial networkings. It takes time to create these new habits. But the sooner you start, the sooner you're going to start to feel more connected with your body. Aches and pains, can decrease, minimize, completely go away. And we can also prevent all of these things. And that's a big thing. So I get people that ask, can I do Core Rehab even if I've never had a baby? And I'm like, absolutely. Because initially, while it was designed for postpartum, for diastasis, it has come full circle in being something that is so good for prevention. When you learn how to connect appropriately through your core, movements that are good for your body, you go then through the rest of your life really understanding that. So it's designed for you to implement it the way that fits for your life. You can go through it a little bit quicker. It's not about going through it quickly, and it's not one of those that you get through and you're just done with it. You want to work through it, and then there's a bonus phase that I have some kettlebell workouts and stuff that's going to take you that will take you to that next level once your body is ready. And that is really, really the biggest key that I want you to take away from today is, understanding what your body's telling you today, where you're at, is it appropriate for your body, and how can we adjust it? Maybe it's just a simple modification. Maybe it's bringing more awareness to breath, to not tuck the pelvis and things like that. So feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at Erica Zeal or on Facebook. It'll be facebook.com/Erica Zeal Fitness. So you can reach out to me on both of those social media platforms and check out all the details and information about my core rehab program at ericazeal.com. Thanks for joining me.